Good evening. May not be evening for you. It's evening for me, and I'm a little bit nervous. I'm in a psych ward, and I haven't spoken inside this ward until now. And I've been here, well, in this hospital, I've been for 4 months, 5 months, 4 or 5 months, over altogether, because I was at another hospital before. It's been about 6 months, and prior to that, I was in prison, and I've been displaced for over a year. So I might suddenly go quiet, and you might be appreciative of that. I've seen people who talk a lot before. I'll try and that's something I could do. Yeah, there's a little counter up there. Try and keep it brief. I've got on my. I'm sorry, I keep looking to the side. It's probably terribly distracting. I suspect now is I've won myself a few subscribers. I suspect now will be the moment I might lose, might lose them. You never know. I've seen people like me on YouTube. When I say like me, I've got on my Asperger's clinical summary the diagnosis summary. It says marked one-sided verbosity. Well, you're not going to get a word in edgeways anyway in this format, so it's might not be that relevant. Maybe I'm slightly different talking to myself. I don't know. It's probably less perplexing. Anyway, let's get down to the nitty gritty. You're probably thinking, well, what's he doing in a psych ward? What was he in prison for? I'll see if I can do a really quick. I'm not known to be quick. I mean, short, terse. I'm not I'm not very witty. If brevity is the sort of wit. I fidgeted a lot as a kid, a young kid, and that was helpful in music class. Nowhere else. And for your benefit, I'll stop checking to the left, and I'll just try and keep the peripheral going. Because if you've got a condition like mine, and you don't know when you're going to get a punch on the nose, it's broken. But you can only see it when I've lost a bit of weight, as I did in prison. I nearly I lost about 6 stone in how many months was I there? Oh, I was in and out for about 4 times. I kept going back in because I was psychotic the whole time. I was psychotic 9 months before I ended up in hospital. And it's all to do with music, or not to do with music. I mean, to do with not doing music. So I won myself an award as a youngster. That's why I speak like this. I'm from a middle class family, but I sound the poshest of the lot. When I say family, we're all strange. Probably for their good, because I can be a bit of a handful. Music, yeah. So music, I did manage to get myself a choral scholarship to Oxford University. Later, there was a lot of period in between where things went. This is supposed to be just the build up to why am I here? Because I'm trying to keep it brief. I didn't even know what this title of this video is. Title of the video says on why am I in hospital? Why am I here? What am I doing? What's this YouTube channel all about? Somebody sent me a connection request. I've always had dumb phones because I lose the phones, and so now I've got a smartphone, and it's quite different. I've I'm a bit rusty because I haven't spoken for so long. Normally I talk rather a lot, quickly. Anyway, so music. I have been in a council flat, not long after leaving university. Unbeknownst to me, I wasn't able to um, function well outside a structure and a routine, and I wasn't able to impose it myself. Needed to be externally imposed. I didn't know any of this. I mean, I was pictures of me in the newspaper and things like this with the choir I was in doing rather well, and I thought, well, I didn't even keep it because I thought, well, this is just the start, and I had high hopes and cocky little so and so. I mean, how the worm has turned. I don't know if that's the right. Is it a metaphor? I don't know. Anyway, so I've been in a council flat for the last 3 decades, and I've been on drugs. When I say drugs, I mean psychiatric drugs. And it's to do with not doing music really, because I've been stressed and not being able to practice. When I first got to the council flat, I'd gone to a job, an office job, and it was incredibly stressful, and it didn't last long. And I ended up in the hospital. Started out as, they said, anxiety and depression. Now, of course, it's something it's mutated, not muted. I'm not muted. Well, I've been muted in here. It's now schizoaffective disorder, which is like a combination. Oh, sugar. I'm just going to be careful. There's a bang there. I don't know if somebody's got. Can I pause it? That's the door banged, and it's terrible banging in here, and the psychiatrist doesn't understand that I can't just tune out like this hum of a fridge or something like that. I'm taking in all this information. It's to do with weak central coherence and or detail focus is a nicer way of putting it. And future prediction, and it's all the Asperger's thing. And if you're wondering what I'm on about, I've got a video which explains that. So yeah, I got diagnosed with schizoaffective disorder. I been in this flat for 3 decades, and I've hardly done any music at all. I've been too worried about upsetting my neighbours and about being evicted. And the last neighbours, before the new one, they said, "Oh, play as much as you want, practice as much as you want." And I was determined, honour my father, honour myself, and do my music. As soon as the older neighbours left, I was going to do the music. Well, why didn't I do the music when the ones who said you can play as much as you want? Well, he used to work on the phone, mental health, funnily enough, and I was not able to tune out the sound of him talking on the phone. And I was just unsettled by moving around and just very nervous and on edge. And I'd started to hear voices at that point. I started to hear voices 2019, around the time of COVID. I've got to pause again. Someone's walking around. So this is fraught with danger. I mean, the problem is that they really don't understand Asperger's in the NHS. They don't understand that for me, once I start talking, it can be very, very difficult to stop. And also, I can get misdiagnosed because they are ignorant about differentiating mental illness from. I mean, I have been mentally ill, but what is normal for me when I'm not being ill, people might think I am ill because I'm. Well, in company, I'm talking rather a lot, and I'm jumping from subject to subject, and everything is related to me, and everything is related for me, and that, I think, it kind of gets covered in the Asperger's one, but I'll do a video about that as well, because everything is, I think it's mirrored in my brain. There's lots more connections than somebody without this condition. And therefore, I call it topical bleed. There is no end to a topic, and it's one of the reasons I can't stop talking. Well, I can stop talking, but one of the difficult for me to curtail it, because one thing leads to another, leads to another. Another thing on the Asperger's report was highly tangential thinking. Well, I disagree with that. I think what it is this topical bleed thing. I see more things as connected. And then I failed to summate, so I failed to bring everything back together and tie it together. That's to do with the weak central coherence again, and that's about context and about. So we'll see how we get on. I mean, I don't know if this is. I've not planned this talk. I didn't even know what I was going to talk about, apart from just trying to explain why I'm here. So let's get on with it. Sorry, I shouldn't apologise. No, maybe I should. So schizoaffective disorder. I couldn't. The last neighbours before the new one, I couldn't differentiate between what was voices and what was the neighbours. So I wouldn't know if it was voices I was listening to or if it was the neighbours I was listening to. And the neighbours were nice, but the voices weren't. So they said, do your music, but the voices said something quite different. So I didn't do any music, but I also heard just as many voices, in fact, more voices on one of the antipsychotics than I did off them. So I just thought, and I had no drive, and I was pretty much bedbound. It's so sedating, like a zombie. And so I thought, once I get, when they leave, I'm going to start doing my music, because I knew they were due to leave. And I was just withdrawing off the drugs. I was getting off the drugs because it's very, very hard to do anything on the drugs. Fortunately, now I'm on a much lower dose, and it's a more stimulating antipsychotic, if any of them could be described as stimulating. Oh yeah. So I didn't do the music, and then I decided when the new neighbour moves in, I'm going to do the music. Unfortunately for me, I got the neighbour from my worst nightmares. So I started doing some singing practice, and within 10 minutes, she was shouting through the letterbox, "Can you do that somewhere else, please?" I went literally crazy. I became psychotic. She complained to the council about my practicing, even though it was only half an hour singing practice a day. She complained to the council. And it's a house divided into flats, badly divided. It's a 50s house divided into flats, and it's not. I mean, I've spent thousands of pounds doing my best to try and insulate it, and just not not done my music. And 3 decades, it's just been sad. I've just used to sit by the television with the hand on the control, and if it was audible enough for me to hear it, I'd turn it down a bit because I thought I'd be disturbing the neighbours. I mean, really paranoid about being evicted and upsetting people. And nobody was upset. Well, the first lady was a little bit, she wasn't too chuffed about it. That was when I started, and that's probably what put me off. And I didn't do anything again for like 15 years or so, apart from some stuff with headphones, a bit of dance music. And I just decided, no, this is it. If I get evicted, if I'm sleeping rough, if I get sent to prison, I'm going to do my music. Because, I'm 52 now. At the time I was 50, and I was coming up to 51, and I was just not, I've got to. What's the point of having lived the whole life just too scared to live? It's not alive. And so coming off the drugs, it took 2 years, 2.75 years to get off. There's 2 antipsychotics and an antidepressant, which was on for pain. And I did about a month or so. And I didn't do any recording of my singing, but I recorded recorder. I'd started learning the recorder again after having played very young at primary school during COVID, when I was crazy the first time round. And I recorded I recorded like 50 videos in a month or so, and I put them all up. It's called Rodrigo's Rodrigo Records, RODRIGORECORDS. I've lost access to that channel now, and I've got another channel called Moodoo Van Spoon, which I've also lost access to, MOODOOVANSPOON. Anyway, I went crazy and I became convinced that the new neighbour was working on behalf of the police undercover to expose council neglect because the council hadn't been properly accommodating me and looking after me. I'd had a assessing social worker who said I needed a PA, specially trained in autism. I needed support workers trained in anyone who worked with me to be trained in autistic related conditions, and a ongoing social worker, which is quite rare now because they change annually unless there's special circumstances, and they thought that I met those. And I was also a bungalow that was recommended because of the whole habituation to stimuli, failure to habituate, and not being able to tune things out, and not being able to predict what happens next, and being disturbed by the activities of my neighbours. None of that happened. And this was like 7 years ago, I think, and it predates the psychosis. All this money spent on social workers, and then nothing actually happens. So you get a social worker saying this should happen, that should happen, and nothing does. And I'd been in hospital and care plans, and they don't get implemented. So it's just like, well, what's the point? But I guess lots of people don't want to pay, and this probably lose me some people. But lots of people don't want to pay extra on tax, but I think it's a win-win because I think everyone wants to do something. Everyone has a dream as a child. Everyone wants to. There's not different types of people. I don't believe that. I believe that everyone, if people are sort of lackluster and they've had it beaten out of them, or they've lost hope. I think that everyone. I think that we should all work together, and we should all be together, and we should all help each other. That's what I think. And that, you may say, well, yeah, you would say that because you're beneficiary. Well, whatever. I didn't want to make it about that. I can do a video about that at some point, hopefully. I'm coming up to the time where, I know now with the shorts, everyone are really, really quick, and people can stand about 10, 15 seconds. And since I've had the smartphone, my brains have been affected like that as well, But apparently 20 minutes is about the most for videos like this, before people just, if you haven't lost the plot already. What was I going to do? So I didn't do the music. And the new neighbour, new neighbour music, I'm going to do my music. The new neighbour doesn't like me doing the music. The new neighbour is wanting, the mother had visited before she moved in and wanted absolute silence evenings and weekends. And the new neighbour is a private resident, unlike me, council, and the new neighbour could pay for absolute quiet and not move into a flat underneath somebody else's flat in a divided house. But there we go. She didn't, and she complained to the council. The council came banging on my door. I completely panicked. I didn't speak to the council. I just went upstairs and started playing the recording frenetically. And I was psychotic at this point. And then the police got involved. I'd been downstairs and I'd been outside, and I'd been told by the voices, and I was deluded that I needed to go downstairs and she was going to help me and save me from the situation, because despite her being against me, in my delusion, she was going to rescue me from this situation. She was working with undercover police to expose the council and all the problems that I had. And I was outside her place, and she had a camera on her door. And with that footage alone, the police did not interview me whatsoever. I ended up in prison. And I was in the prison a fair bit, and I'll do a separate video about that, because I was also in prison for something else as well, which is protesting my situation in a rather kind of unpleasant way, you might say. But I didn't want to do any damage, and there was voices that told me to do it. It was actually voices that saying that MI5, and they told me to do it. And I don't think that you would do anything that out of character with voices telling you, but it's not something I would have done if what I hadn't been told to by voices. And it is a bit frightening when you've got voices telling you to do things and you feel you have to do. Not feel you have to do what the voices say sometimes. You have to do it because they won't leave you alone. And so I think it's called command hallucinations. And I've experienced that, and I've done everything that they've told me to do, and I've done some pretty unpleasant things, but I've not harmed anybody, thankfully. Anyway, I've got a loud bark. You might have heard me singing a bit. I'm going to tie up a bit now, but I've got a loud bark, and people have been quite intimidated by me. Put on quite a bit of weight now. I've lost it in the prison. So why am I here? I'm in a psych ward because I haven't been able to do my music. And finally, after 3 decades, when there comes a chance where I'm just finally going to say, yes, I'm going to do it. If I get evicted, if I end up on the street sleeping rough, if I end up in the prison, I'm going to do it. If I lose, if I lose everything, I'm going to do it. And guess what? That's exactly what's happened. And now the judge, the police never even interviewed me. I was convicted of harassment, amongst other things. I'll cover that in another video. But harassment is unrelated. This is to do with processing my situation. I was convicted of harassment, and they didn't even ask me what had happened. They just used this footage of me on a video, and they didn't get to find out that I was psychotic for 9 months. And of course, the judge is off the scene now, but the judge decided I couldn't go back there until August next year. So I've got nowhere to go. So I've been stuck in a hospital, sane, for 5 months. I was crazy before, but I got sane pretty quickly when they gave me the injection. And I've got nowhere to go. And I'll do another video about the ramifications, but it's a terrible big mess. And I don't know that this is going to be much interest to anybody. It might be. It might give an indication about there's going to be some interesting things further down the line. Maybe I'll up my game and get a bit better at it. Anyway, if you've watched this far, you're impressive. Thank you very much for tuning in. And it's really the singing that I want to do. But I also, whilst I'm on this channel, whilst I've got the opportunity, I want to expose like the behavior that I encountered from the police, from the prison service, and from the council, because I've been treated absolutely appallingly. A social worker said I've been oppressed. There's quite strong language from a social worker. Social worker since is disappeared, and there's a new social worker. So I don't know if there's a connection, but I don't know. But I've implied there might be. I'm just clueless about lots of things, but it's interesting. So there's lots and lots and lots to talk about. I want to do my music, but I also want people to know that this isn't the green and pleasant land that some might think. Prison is brutal. It's punishing. It's not, I just thought, oh, you get your liberty, you lose your liberty, that's it, that's your punishment. No. It's down to every detail, almost everything is planned to punish you. And it's grueling. And I lost around 6 stone, and I ate things I shouldn't eat, like a rabbit does, to survive. And I was psychotic. There were other psychotic people there. Lots of mentally ill people there, particularly black people, and I think that's a racism thing. I think if you're black, you're less likely to get the opportunity to go to a hospital, more likely to be put in a prison and treated absolutely abominably, which is awful. So the prisons are really awful. If you buy one of these right-wing papers and it says, oh, it's like a holiday camp, no. It is brutal, absolutely brutal. We'll get there. I'll do a video about it. The police as well, dragged around naked by the police in handcuffs after a head injury, not taken for medical assessment, left in the street in just a pair of trousers in winter while psychotic, dragged around back of a van, head bumping up and down on the ground. Lots to say about that. The council just believed a private resident underneath and didn't come to find out well, they did come to find out what the situation is, but they're very aggressively banging on the door, and they moved to evict me, and the psychiatrist has fought against that. But I think that because I can't go back until August next year, it's and also because this the new neighbour, wants to stop her phoning the council and the police again, and wants to stop the council and the police behaving exactly the same way again, and not looking at my side of things and just taking her word for it. So it's I cry, but I have had some great experiences in my life, a lot of great opportunities, a lot of great things have happened, but there have also been some appalling things. And overall, I've had a really horrific life. Not necessarily something you want to tune in to hear, but I want to talk about it, and I will do. But if you just hear for the music, just go for the music, and hopefully the music will start getting good, and I can find somewhere to do the music, because at the moment I've got somewhere in a psych ward. I've been able to. In prison, I could sing all the time. I was singing in prison. So was another gentleman who was singing next to me. He was singing Englishman, Scotsman, Irishman, dead. That was it. Englishman, Scotsman, Irishman, dead. Englishman, Scotsman, Irishman, dead. And he was speaking. he was speaking in a different language most of the time, but occasionally I caught the words Bryn Terfel, and I just came to the conclusion that because he didn't say Welsh, and because he said Bryn Terfel, you don't know who Bryn Terfel is, he's a Welsh singer, and I just came to the conclusion that I was all right because he mentioned Bryn Terfel, and Welsh wasn't in his little repartee, little loop that he kept reciting. Anyway, that's it. I feel a little bit better because there are actually some funny anecdotes to come. All kinds of crazy things from being psychotic, all kinds of unbelievable delusions, like jumping in people's vans, told that by MI5 to do it and to break into people's houses. It didn't happen, but it nearly happened. That didn't happen. But I got into somebody's van, took something out of the thing, and it was supposed to be some drugs I was supposed to take, but it just turned out to be some washing powder, I think. But I was supposed to be being taken to be debriefed in the country by MI5, and MI5 I had a chip. This is going on too long now. I'm spreading off into all the other stuff. This is supposed to be why am I here? I'm here because I didn't know I had Asperger's. I was bad behavior at school, but did okay with the music. Managed to get myself into a very, very good university. I had a lot of opportunity and advantage in order to do that. I mean, I was very lucky from the get-go. I've been very, very fortunate. But things haven't been quite so fortunate since. And I didn't know that what allowed me to thrive in a few years of younger years, and was not able to do so after I left university, and it's been really, really horrible, and it's a hidden disability, and I'll get to discuss more about that another time, and I just call it a day. So thank you very much for listening and watching, and take it easy, and cheerio, bye.